Oh, that's right. Everybody's working for the weekend. Aren't we all excited that the All-Star break is coming? Because I'm kind of tired of watching the Suns lose. That's right. Your Phoenix Suns lose again tonight. Although this was an interesting journey to get to that loss. This team was competitive. They competed their asses off against a team that is young, athletic, gets out in transition, plays good defense. The Houston Rockets are somewhat of a menace. And while they entered this game losing 6 out of their last 10 games, you knew that somehow, some way, the Suns that were bending the entire game eventually would break. And break they did in the fourth quarter. We'll go over some of the statistics in the fourth, but it was not pretty for Phoenix as they end up losing to Houston 119-112. As I welcome my podcasting partner, Matthew Lissy. That was a great game until it wasn't.
It was a good game. It's interesting. I think these games as they come along, we're going to hope like maybe we get some kind of semblance of a good team and this youth can maybe pick us up, keep us a little bit more cheerful as the season goes on. And tonight was that game, but obviously just finishing it against the Houston Rockets, a team that is young, dangerous, missing Fred VanVleet. They had just enough to pull it off and just shut the Suns up in the end.
Well, and the Suns shut themselves up in the end in some capacity, given the carelessness in which they handled the ball in the fourth quarter. Their ball security was absolutely abysmal in that fourth quarter. The Suns are outscored 35-19 after being up by 8 points in the fourth. They were up 92-84, and they let the Rockets, again, 119-111, not 112. 112 was last night. But the Suns in that fourth quarter, 7 turnovers, led to 13 points for Houston. 16 points in the paint for Houston to the Suns' 8. And it was Tyus Jones turned it over 4 times in the fourth quarter. So we got plenty to talk about on this sub-edition of the Suns Jam Session Therapy Sessions podcast as the Suns drop to 26-28 on the season, and the dreams of potentially even making the play-in get further and further away. The final game before the All-Star break, the Suns don't play again until next Thursday. They could use a break. I think Suns fans overall, we could use a little break too, because it's getting kind of comedic how the Suns are just losing these games in different ways. And you commend the effort and especially the young guys coming in and making an impact. It's nice to watch, but if it doesn't equate to victory, ultimately it's just frustrating. So again, welcome to the Suns Jam Session podcast. My name is John Voida, managing editor of BrightSideOfTheSun.com. My co-host, Matthew Lissy, senior staff writer for Brightside of the Sun as well. And we are the original postgame pod right here on Planet Purple. We've been doing this shit since 2019, and this is an interesting time in our Suns fandom while we do this, because a team that we don't know which direction they're going to go. So if you happen to be watching along live on our YouTube channel, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe, rate, review. If you're not watching the show on YouTube, do us a favor. Head over there and just click a like or a subscribe would be really nice. We'd appreciate it. But if you are somebody who is listening to this podcast at a later time, thank you for lending us your ears. You're going to hear the nice, beautiful sound of a cracked Suns brew right now. I gotta have a
baby.
Buns brew.
Suns are buns.
It's Suns, bruh. That's what it says. Suns, bruh. Let's talk about this loss.
Session podcast, shooting the shit about the Suns since 2019.
That's right. It's a 119-111 loss. The first time the Suns have played the Houston Rockets this season, but not the last. I believe 2 more times this team will be on the schedule. And it brings me to my first question.
Matthew, I've got to ask.
Matthew, I got to ask. Obviously, this is a game that felt winnable. Phoenix was in it fighting for the majority of the game for about 3.5 quarters. Coach Budenholzer, the Coach Budenholzer there, old Coach Bude. He makes that decision to bring Tyus Jones back in the game when he hadn't looked great up to that point. And ultimately, it is a decision that costs the Suns the game because he turns the ball over 4 times in the fourth quarter in 9 minutes played. I'm not saying Colin Gillespie or Ty Washington is going to take us home. We talked about that last night with Ty Washington, unfortunately being a guy who had the ball in his hand in big moments to take 3-pointers and missed. But there was some stability that was happening with both Colin Gillespie and Ty Washington. There was some fluidity, and there was some athleticism being displayed. Is there any way that this is the nail in the coffin that once the All-Star break comes and goes, and hopefully Bradley Beal and Devin Booker are healthy again, that Tyus Jones makes his way to the bench, probably permanently?
Yeah, I mean, what else can he do to kind of like just cement that? I think he did a good job tonight coming in and get the 4 turnovers, and the Suns having an 8-point lead too in the fourth. So you just want to kind of handle that and make sure you have a guy that's trustworthy with the ball. Absolutely not happening with Tyus Jones, but Colin Gillespie, a guy that's actually very young coming in here. We have a lot of hopes maybe for the guy. He was brilliant tonight, and I'm on a mute kind of, and maybe you take over. I'm going to shut this window because there's a dog.
You got dogs barking out there. There's always something. It's the cops are driving by. There's some guys who are out there revving their Harleys, and now you got dogs barking. But, I mean, when we talk about Colin Gillespie and Ty Washington, it's a good story, right? And it appeases those who have what I like to call the disease of what if. Because we're always looking at what if. Well, what if we gave Colin Gillespie more run, man? He's clearly the answer. And you see a game like this tonight, and now because of a game like tonight, where again, the Suns were highly competitive in this game. Because of games like tonight, we're going to be hearing it all season long. It's like Saban Lee last year, you and Saban Lee, who's all constantly like, yeah, he needs more minutes. It's like, dude, the guy's on a 2-way contract. Like, settle down. We shouldn't have to rely on our 2-way contracted guys. Credit where it's due. He played a good game, and our G League guys played a good game. We had a G League backcourt going in this one. Ty Washington, Colin Gillespie, who have both been tearing it up and playing with pace with the G League Suns. And I think that's important. When you look at Memphis last night and you look at Houston tonight, 2 teams that like to get out and run, 2 teams that like to put pressure on the opposing defenses, inserting them into the lineup in spurts throughout this game makes sense to me from a Coach Budenholzer standpoint, because I think that he wants to try to counter some of that athleticism and speed with his young guys, with the young, fresh legs, guys who are hungry while simultaneously evaluating them. But he fell for that typical trap that people do. It's like, hey, it's late in the game. I need to bring back in Tyus, who we haven't been using right all season. And the Suns weren't using right in this game. It almost felt like Tyus, all of a sudden, they started running all these point guard sets for Colin Gillespie and point guard sets for Ty Washington. They're running high screen rolls. They're doing facilitation. Their usage rate is up. And then all of a sudden, it's like, all right, Tyus, you're going to be doing the same thing. He's not used to it. And he literally, I mean, Eddie was talking about it on the broadcast. He's telegraphing his passes and just throwing the ball away. 6 turnovers.
Yeah, that's what
Tyus.
It's exactly what was happening. And the guy, too, at the end, he was just basically forcing up shots. You can just sense the fact that he did not have any kind of momentum, any kind of good energy with him, any kind of confidence. Tyus was struggling out there, and you can just really feel it even through the TV, even through this computer screen, that he should not be the guy with the ball to end the game with the last 5 or 6 minutes, but it continued to go to him. He was trying to run away from the ball at times, run to the corner, but he would end up back with the ball because the Houston Rockets were like, all right, well, you try to do it, right? We're going to make everybody else work, but we'll leave you. You can have that little running shot if you want, or the mid-range shot that might be open, but we don't count on you to make this because you obviously are kind of falling apart in the fourth. There was a lot of this whole year for Tyus. It's been a struggle, right? But this, I feel like it's kind of just a buildup over the season of just maybe too much for him to handle in one season, being the starter for the Phoenix Suns. Now there's a lot of scrutiny within the last few weeks that are just coming down upon him, which he wasn't used to earlier in the season. So having to get used to that, having to get used to him having to run the offense late in the game without Devin Booker to handle the ball, it's a lot for this kind of guy. And I just think that it kind of got too much, too quick for him in this game. But at that point, Coach Budenholzer, he has to pull the guy from the game, put someone else in there, just have Katie handle the ball. but just put what was hot, because Colin Gillespie was definitely hot. He only played 2 minutes in the fourth. Give him a little rest, come back in and finish the game for the Suns, because he's a confident guy. We're saying on the playback, I trust this guy. Like, not saying it's going to work in the future, who knows? But right now in this game, we needed a guy like Colin Gillespie to kind of just slow things down, run the pick and roll, not turn the ball over, and a guy that can shoot the ball confidently, because that was him tonight.
Yeah, and again, disease what if situation 100%, because we don't know that Colin Gillespie would have been the stabilizing force, but it's hard to imagine anything other than that because of the turnovers that were occurring. And they were lazy turnovers. They were telegraph passes. They were cross-court passes that led to fast break points that were just unacceptable, quite frankly, unacceptable. And you look at how many fast break points the Suns surrendered in this game, and 25 to 18. And I like that the fact that the Suns had 18, because that means they were getting out and running. But again, Tyus Jones, it brings me to a question for you, a stat.
Dang, stat me.
Tyus Jones had 6 turnovers tonight. That is a career high for him in one game. Happened tonight against the Rockets. Right amidst the fan base being frustrated with his performance as of late, the realization that the fit just isn't fitting, that here in Phoenix, where in the past he's been primarily a facilitator and a distributor, and here he hasn't been asked to do that. He's been asked to kind of play a 2-guard in a 1-guard body. He's not playing good defense. He's having a career high in turnovers relative to average per game. He's having the highest assist to turnover, or the lowest assist to turnover ratio that he's had in his career since 2018. And what happens? He goes and he puts up a career high 6 turnovers. I mean, this is really it rains and pours in Phoenix, man. Like, we take these guys who come in and have a certain archetype and a certain ability to execute in a certain manner, and when they come here, it just doesn't work. They don't, outside of like Grayson Allen last year, who had a career year. Everybody they digress when they come.
Yeah. The Suns they were basically like a Lamborghini tonight, just approaching that pothole, and they kind of ran it over, and that pothole was Tyus Jones, or maybe a Chinese sinkhole. I think that happens in China a lot, where there's just massive sinkholes. Captures everybody, a couple cars.
I need to get it out. Who do I call? Coach Boone?
Call Coach Boone. Oh, he's at the Open with Booker.
I think he's playing Mason Plumlee too much.
John, it had to happen, though. This had to happen because everyone else was cruising there. Bull had a good game. This is the best Kevin Durant game. Royce O'Neal was hitting shot. Nick Richards looked like DeAndre Ayton out there at times with his field goal percentage and the 14 or whatever rebounds he had tonight. So Ty was huge. So it had to be one guy just to fuck it all up. And like you said, it's never happened really in this kind of a way that's so tragic for Tyus Jones. But I feel like it had to happen because the Suns had to lose this game. I don't know why. It just seemed like a Suns game that they can get, because the Houston Rockets have struggled without Fred VanVleet closing games out. So this is perfect. Have KD try to close this one out, but then there's one dude that just comes in. It's like, all right, here's $40, dude. Just go turn the ball over. $10 a turnover. He's like, all right. All right, mister. I'll go get 4 of them.
He's just thankful somebody notices him. He's like, I've been so unnoticed over there in Phoenix. Thank you, sir. I'll do it for $5 a turnover. I'm just happy to be a part of the team again. Nobody really notices me. Yeah, it's unfortunate because the challenge with Phoenix this entire season is it almost feels like they have to play a perfect game to win a game. And that's a thing that typically happens to bad teams. That's like the Wizards. That's like Charlotte. That's like another team that's bad. I can't think of another one offhand. Us, where for some reason there's always one speed bump that we have to overcome, and it doesn't become a speed bump. It becomes a mountain for the team that the team has to climb. It'll be turnovers collectively as a team. Now today it was collective. Kevin Durant did have 7 turnovers in this game as well, and we'll talk about that here in a bit. But overall, the Suns had 18 turnovers to 11 for Houston, right? Points in the paint was 64 for Houston, 52 for Phoenix. So they weren't destroyed in the paint. And if you look at total rebounds, it was 47 for Houston, 43 for Phoenix. There is positive things happening in Phoenix, especially since Bol. Now, granted, this is the second consecutive game, but Bol being in that starting lineup, although he only grabbed 4 rebounds, it opened up or it provided length, and it opened up the ability for Nick Richards to grab rebounds. So our rebounding is slowly getting better. Now, obviously, we need to see this over probably about 4 or 5 more games before we can officially identify this as a trend. But it does appear that there is some positive movement relative to total rebounding on this team. But of course, once that happens and we start to see some positive things, when I'm a stats guy, I like to look at stats and identify trends. When I start to see some of these things happening, but we're still losing, you're looking at what's regressing. And the regression is Tyus Jones. The regression is Tyus. Like, I haven't looked at Twitter tonight. We were doing the playback. Again, if you haven't, follow the link in the description to our playback channel. Subscribe. It's a fun time hanging out with me and Matthew, and Suns Worldwide was there. So says Jay and Boyd. I mean, we had a bunch of people on there.
Was there.
Dan Duarte.
Dan. Yeah.
Sexy Dan showed up from Fanning the Flames to show us his beard for like 5 minutes, and he was gone. But it was a good time. So I wasn't checking the socials. I wasn't engaging in social media. But my assumption is it's fucking burning with Tyus Jones' name.
Yeah, it has to be. And it's the downpour, like you said early on, like the fact that the Suns have gone through 3 starters now where you just can't play them, it's kind of insane. It absolutely is. And it's not like Devin Booker and Kevin Durant haven't been perfect this year either. Like, they've been struggling too. So to have 3 of our starters now to go on the bench, or one of them to be gone and playing with the Hornets and excited about 20-point blowouts over there, it's kind of disappointing. It's kind of a failure, obviously, this season.
So you looked up. So what did Yusuf Nurkic say after? So for those of you who don't know, Yusuf Nurkic played his first game in Charlotte tonight, and they got blown out by like 20 points. I think he had 8 rebounds, but this is what he said afterwards.
Yeah, Nurko, he went ahead and just had a press conference and said, here it is. As a player, you want to feel wanted. As a human being, you want to feel respected. I think I find it so far good. Love these guys. They're competing their asses off. So,
like, I don't know if that's appreciation for Charlotte or shade at Phoenix.
It's shade at Phoenix. Absolutely. He could not wait to get that interview off right after he got to Charlotte.
It's like, we lost by 40, but man, like, I'm appreciated as a human being.
Yeah, that's the thing. You can just see how the conversation went. It's like, oh, you don't respect me. It's like, God damn it. Like, we need you, son of a bitch.
Well, talking about replacements for Tyus Jones, we saw Ty Washington again, and we saw Colin Gillespie in this game, and we saw solid minutes from both of them. Ty Washington played 26 minutes essentially, was 4 of 10 from the field and 1 of 3 from beyond the arc, 11 total points. He had 3 assists, 4 rebounds, only the 1 turnover. And Colin Gillespie played 14 and a half minutes, was 4 of 8 from the field, including 1 of 2 from beyond the arc. He had 9 points. He had 3 assists, and he had 0 turnovers. He actually had a blocked shot. So kind of a double question for you. Mm-hmm. What did you see from both of them individually? Yeah. And could they potentially be a replacement? I mean, these conversations, welcome to Suns like the Suns of 3, 4, 5 years ago, when anytime some guy comes in off the bench and we're like, hey, could he be the answer? You know, like, here we are. We're doing this shit again.
This is exactly what we're doing. And in this instance, I mean, when you're looking at Ty, he's definitely a guy that's quick. He's fast to get to the rim. He can do a lot by passing it out. He can't really finish the rim, obviously, right now, but he's definitely a confident player, right? He's jacking up threes. He's getting a shot he kind of wants. But the best thing about both of them, including Colin Gillespie, is they can create some space on their own offensively. Like, when they are playing ISO or coming off picks and stuff, they create another whole room where they're like, okay, I'm here. I have options. I can either shoot the jumper or dish it off to somebody on the pick and roll, or else maybe to the corner for 3. Because that's what Gillespie was doing, I felt like, tonight. He's had that, and he has the options there. Like, they're really quick to read the picks and get to it. Like, we're used to the Suns team kind of slowing things down. The ISO is a little slow. We're a little bit older, but these guys are spry. It's nice to have. And it's fun to watch, right? But like you said, it's one of those things where it's like, damn, we're kind of going back to the old days where we're just having a little bit of hope in these young guys to help us get to the playoffs or something. Like, I didn't want that. I wasn't even excited about the buyout market. Like, I don't even want the Suns to do that shit, because the buyout market depresses me to hell. But now we're talking about some young guys that are from the G League coming in and just trying to help this team make the playoffs.
Yeah, we're out of what can this guy do to help us win a championship or at least 3 rounds in the playoffs, and we're back into scouting mode as fans, watching these players come out, you know, and I did not see this coming as the season began. And I think that for those of you who watch and listen to the podcast regularly, you've experienced kind of this slow downward projection of acceptance in at least me as a host, somebody who's just kind of constantly just like, man, I want to believe, but I have to accept who the Suns are and where we are. I like what I see from Ty Washington. It's clear that he's a G League All-Star, and there's a reason for it. He plays with a frenetic pace. He has that confidence, as you mentioned. He's got a nice little runner, has a good jump shot, can actually shoot the three ball. Hasn't shot it well in the past 2 games, but he can shoot that. And it reminds me of kind of a Saban Lee type who has a 3 and can shoot. Because Saban Lee, all he was good for was attacking the interior, trying to get to the foul line. Not a great distributor, but both he and Colin Gillespie do share something that Tyus Jones doesn't. And that's their ability to beat somebody off the ball with their dribble. They can create their own shot and create their own space, which is beneficial for somebody who's potentially going to be a distributor for this team. Because if you can beat somebody off the ball and create your own space, you're going to force defenses to start to make decisions. They don't and can't play solo one-on-one defense, locking down that guy, which allows other defenders to stay close to their guys and ultimately doesn't open up the ability to get shots. If somebody's beat off the ball, a defense has to collapse, and then that's where creation and spacing occurs. We see it nightly against the Suns. Tyus Jones is a great example of that. I mentioned it last night. Couldn't stop the ball in transition on multiple times, and it was easy layups. Kind of same thing again tonight. You isolate Tyus Jones, man, you're going right by him. Somebody said it somewhere yesterday, and I wish I could remember who said it so I could credit them appropriately, but they're like, Tyus Jones can't guard a parked car. And that's a fact right now. And at least with Ty and Colin, I'd have to watch, and I will watch more film on their defensive lateral quickness and their ability to try to cut off, players. But know that the guys they were going against tonight, the Houston Rockets, that's a fast fucking team. That's a team that is quick twitch. They get by you quick.
Yep.
I mean, all of them, everyone on that team is. So the fact that the Suns even hung in this game as long as they did was I think it was surprising to all of us. I mean, how often during this game were you finding yourself going, okay, I don't know, we'll see. Like they're up at halftime by like 7. We're like, okay, third quarter Suns, man, we know how this is. All of a sudden they are unfocused. The opposing team comes out and imposes their will. The Suns scored 35 in the third to the Rockets 33. It's that fourth quarter where they only could muster up 19 points, where the disadvantage of playing Kevin Durant on back-to-back nights for as much and as many minutes as you did ultimately sunk the Suns in this one.
Who the heck are you?
I'm Kevin Durant. You know who I am. Y'all know who I am.
Did anybody see a sniper? Did anybody see anything?
I'm one of the best players to ever play the game.
After playing 43 minutes last night, Kevin Durant has to play 42 tonight. He's 15 of 22 from the field, 2 of 5 from beyond the arc, has 37 points and 9 assists. He's got 2 steals. He's got 5 rebounds. He has 7 turnovers, and he missed 7 total shots. 5 of those came in that fourth quarter where he had to play 11 minutes and 13 seconds. He was 2 of 7 from the field. He was 1 of 5 from beyond the arc, only had the 5 points. What'd you see from Kevin Durant tonight?
Oh, best game of the season by far. He was angry. He was mad. He was yelling at the crowd, spitting. Like, first row,
I don't want to be
there,
here.
There were like huge loogies going out there. He was just like, I want to be here in Houston maybe next year, because that's what everyone keeps thinking, right? Even the subreddit, they're talking about Booker and KD having to fight each other for come to Houston, which is kind of ridiculous, but it might be an option for KD this offseason. But right now, KD, there is just always that funny thing about, him having to kind of prove himself now after the trade deadline, because he was mentioned in trades. So is he going to come through? Is he going to come through for the Suns without Devin Booker? He was so close. I think this would have been obviously one of the best games we've seen as the Suns as a whole, and also Kevin Durant just as a whole, because on defense, on offense, hitting the threes late in the game, he had that logo 3 that he missed to kind of cut the lead to 3 points. But he just had that confidence in him, that anger in him that you want from him game to game, every fucking game.
Yeah, playing mean, playing aggressive. That's always, Kevin Durant's one of those players who benefits from that. Nick Richards, oddly, being one too. Like when he's angry, it turns into production. And again, I just think the challenge in this game is the fact that KD by that fourth quarter was just dog tired. Back-to-back nights against teams that are grinding. I mean, Dylan Brooks the whole game is just banging bodies with him. The whole time he's just banging bodies with him. And you look at that fourth quarter and KD was like, I'm going to try to do everything in my power. Dude, I read all the wrong stats. KD was 4 of 8 in the fourth. I was reading Bull's fucking stats. KD was 4 of 8 from the fourth in the fourth for 9 points. Had a couple turnovers, but it doesn't negate what I saw with my own eyes and the fact that he was tired in this one.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I think is productive, and again, here we are like, okay, let's try to fix the Suns. But I like Bol playing because it allows Kevin Durant to play his natural position at a 3. He played a second consecutive game nearing 40 points, and it's because he's being allowed to play at the 3. And I think that's something that's we need to continue to monitor, especially as people get healthy again, as Bradley Beal comes back, as Devin Booker comes back. I honestly think you go Devin Booker at the point. Fuck it. Let's go point Book again. Let's go Bradley Beal. Let's go Kevin Durant. Let's go Bol and Nick Richards.
Yeah. No.
Would you say no to that starting 5?
I did just say no, but I do love
no,
it. I would say no, yeah, no, yes, no, yes. No means yes means no. Oh wait, you're getting never mind. Remember that game? If you say yes, it means no or whatever.
Yes, opposite stay.
Opposite
Suns
stay
are
was
good.
the best. Might be Kevin Durant. Yep. Tired and still balled out. I know he was insane tonight, but I think the fact that they're rolling out these starting lineups with Bol just really opens up a lot, like you said. And when coming back from the All-Star break, Beal is sitting there on the bench looking a little bit upset maybe at times. Maybe he's just annoyed of being out. Maybe the Suns staff is just holding him out till after the All-Star break, so he's just disappointed. But he can come back and play the 2 guard and KD playing the 3. It's a lot to look forward to. Like the chat was saying, with the youth and stuff, it's not bad to look forward to the future. So, I mean, we do have a few things to look forward to when the Suns come back from the All-Star break.
It's just unfortunate that, again, we're in this world, but, I think I'm going to just stop saying that and understand that this is the Suns space, and we are just going to watch it for the rest of the season and figure out what's going on and what we could do to enjoy this. Watch it with a friend. That's my only advice.
Vicky, the great Nick Richards. Richard means dick, that's why he's Vicky, the great Nick Richards.
This was a damn good game by Nick Richards overall. Double-double for him, 5 of 6 from the field, 11 points, 13 rebounds. And so I ask you, Matthew, why did he only play 3 minutes and 10 seconds in the fucking 4th? Like, what the fuck, man?
I don't know. This is what I don't know, because Nick Richards was like KD. He seemed kind of angry even to start the game. He had some frustration in him, and there were some dunks. And not to forget, KD had 5 dunks tonight? Like, there was a lot of dunks from KD throwing it down. And it wasn't like they were just wide open dunks. Like, he was making his way to the rim. But Nick Richards was upset. He was tired of the talk, maybe. Tyus Jones went the other way where he's kind of just diminished. And then now Nick Richards is hearing the talk, and he's like, okay, maybe I can come back and have a good game for the Suns fans out there. And he obviously did. He's obviously not too much bigger, but he can, I guess, own Sengun, even though Sengun did dunk on him. It was pretty nice dunk by him. But on the other side of things, like Nick Richards can own the offensive paint if he wants to, with the 14 or 13 rebounds, the 4 offensive rebounds.
Yeah.
Like, it was nice. I mean, this is his first good game, I feel like, in maybe 2 weeks or so, because it's been a while, and it's good for him to step up. But still, man, like, he has to continue to build on this and just show, like, after the All-Star break, like, he can just hold it down this season and hope to get us into the play-in by him just being a decent center. We know he's a backup, but just having these games off and on, like, we need that. We need Bud just to keep him in there if he's having these good games, and realize that. Put him and Gillespie back in the game. Just see what happens.
Yeah, I'll say and I said it last night, and again, I'm repetitive at this point, and that's what happens when you watch a whole game on playback and then you do a live podcast. You write an article, and you get up the next day and you watch a whole game on playback, and you do a podcast, and then I'll be writing an article after this. You start to feel somewhat repetitive in what you're saying, but when it comes to Nick Richards, again, he's paid $5 million a year. And we're going to pay him $5 million next year. He's not a starting 5, but he's a damn serviceable big. He's aggressive. He has the physical tool set. He doesn't have necessarily some of the quickness that might be needed to consistently be a successful big in this league. You watch it the way he guards from a defensive standpoint. He also doesn't stop the ball. He's a drop coverage guy, and he continues to backpedal because he's afraid to body anyone up, because if you try to body anyone up, again, like if a screen happens and you're the drop coverage guy and you just stand there, a guy can literally just run into you and it's a foul on you. You're like, dude, I was just standing here. Like, I'm allowed to stand here. So what he does is, and you can tell that he's somebody who's been called for that numerous times in his career. So he's tentative. He's not going to try to stand and just put his hands up and be like, dude, try to go around me. And so he backs up, and then guys do jump and go around him in the air, and that's one of his defensive deficiencies. That's something that I definitely noticed tonight. But he did have that aggressiveness. He did have that chip on his shoulder. He did play well. And Budenholzer in the fucking fourth quarter is like, no, dude, I got a guy for you. Plum, 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 de plum, 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 plum. Plum, de plum, 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 Mason Plumlee. 6 minutes for him in the fourth quarter. -6. He had 0 points. He had 0 assists. He had 1 foul, or he had 1 assist, 1 rebound, 1 foul. 6 minutes played, and in this whole game, Mason Plumlee 17 minutes played, 2 of 3 from the field, 4 points, 5 total rebounds. I mean, I get it. He's your backup center, and we don't have the greatest center rotation. And it'd be interesting if you were to rank all center rotations in the NBA, because I bet you the Suns are a bottom third. They might be like a bottom 3.
Are we including G League or no?
Seriously, like even in the G League, we're like a 4th best center. But I mean, that being said, so I get it. I get that it's Nick Richards and Mason Plumlee, but in this game, Richards looked good. And I just don't know why. I don't know why they went away from Nick Richards. I'm not saying that would have solved anything. That would have won the game. Again, the disease of what if. But you just start to question some of these little decisions along the way. That's kind of the theme of this post-game podcast. We're questioning why Tyus Jones, who didn't look good in this game, is going against guards who are quicker and faster than him and is getting defensively just run around, is getting so many minutes. And then he's playing against guys who are watching him and watching his telegraph passes and picking them off. We're wondering why Nick Richards, who's playing well, is sat, and Mason Plumlee is playing. I'm just left with a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's strange. And you think Plumlee is like us? Maybe he's like, come on, why are you really going to put me out here for 6 minutes in the fourth? Like, this is a good game by Richards. Maybe he's the biggest Nick Richards fan out there, because he knows that he's asked to do too much right now for the Suns team, like a lot of these players are. And when Plumlee is playing like this, where he's actually asked to do, well, actually those behind the back passes, he probably shouldn't be doing those things. No one's asking him to do that. But there are things
every time he does something like that, Katie looks at him, he's like, dude, what the fuck, bro? My hand, like yesterday he did one, and like Katie's like, my hands are right here, dude.
Did it happen again today though? I feel like it happened again today with somebody.
It might have.
Katie was on one again today, but yeah, I think the thing is, I think Plumlee's kind of like, I don't know what to do out here, right? I mean, can you imagine that situation where it's like, the fans are sick of you. You make mistakes, obviously, but also like we're asking more than what you can bring to a game. Like that's a lot of pressure too for him. So obviously it's a Coach Bud thing. Like this really stuck out today with Coach Bud making a few decisions tonight, just really kind of costing the Suns team a win. And this is the first game I feel like where Bud did kind of cost him the win. Like I haven't been on that side, but I did the same thing last year with Frank Vogel, where I'm like, no, it's not Frank. And then by this time, the Suns were like 29-22. By the time the season ended, I was like, all right, I can kind of see it. But then now I'm like kind of seeing it with Coach Bud. So I hope it doesn't bleed over past the All-Star break and to the first game, because they got to get this thing right, including the head coach.
Yeah, and I don't know what this offseason brings. Obviously, none of us do. And whether or not Budenholzer will be here next year, because, again, it's a bad look for Matt Ishbia to go through 4 coaches in 4 seasons. But like you said, it's different to see the Suns lose in a game in which you feel like Budenholzer kind of cost us the game. There's definitely been situations in which that's occurred this season, but I don't know if it's happened with the regularity that I feel a lot of people might state. Like, hey, he lost us another one. Here's kind of a fun stat for you, if you will. Let's do a little trivia time.
You know what time it is.
Trivia time
out there, Jamsters. The Suns have played in how many games decided by 3 points or less this season? What's your guess?
I'm going to say
now, real quick. Obviously, this isn't one of them. They lost by a total of 8 in this one, but this one was close late, and that's not really a question. But what do you think?
I'm going to say 12.
Okay, Jamsters, let me know in the chat how
One.
many. So Keith Nettle says 1. We've in one game 3 points. That's what it feels like, though, right? It feels like we're never in a close game winning. We're never really in a close game losing. Now, granted, we've had a couple overtime games, but even some of them haven't necessarily been close at the end. John Tran, thank you again for joining us. Everybody who says 10. Greg Hughes says 15. Saul gives a total of 6. The answer is 8. Now, here's my follow-up question to trivia time. Knowing that that's the number, 8, what is the Suns' record in games decided by 3 points or less? There's 8 total games that they've played in their, 52, 53 games. So Matthew's saying 8-0. He's saying it's like the Orlando bubble, right? The Suns were 8-0 in games decided by 3 points or less. Okay. Charlie Stevens, what's up, Charlie? Says 7 and a salute. I need a win and a loss total here. What do we think, everybody? What do we think? So Matthew thinks 8-0. Nobody's guessing. 4-4 from Keith Nettles. Okay, valid. 7-1 from Juan Carlos Arenada. 8-1 start. He goes, oh my God, that wasn't the 8-1 start, was it? No, but those were definitely some games. 0-8 from Saul. 2-6 from Floppy Socks 44. It's 5-3. It's 5-3. So this team does perform typically well. So, the reason I bring all that up is we talk about games where we feel like Mike Budenholzer has lost the game for the Suns due to his coaching, his rotations, and obviously tonight, knowing that you're without Booker, knowing you're without Beal, knowing you're without Grayson Allen, there's a lot of opportunity to try something out and try something new. Tonight, it was a swing and a miss. Wasn't a 3-point game. It's just an 8-point loss. Here's what's interesting. Games decided by 10 points. How many games, Matthew? 10 points or less.
10 points or less? I would say 20.
21.
21. Okay.
What's the record in those games?
10-10.
It's 21.
11-10.
It's 8-13. 8-13. So, again, we say Budenholzer costing us games potentially. Maybe. This one, I feel like absolutely. Absolutely. Now here's a guy who's this is wild here. Bringing up this guy.
Yeah, bling bling bling. Rolls Royce. Yeah, nigga, Rolls Royce.
Royce O'Neal started this game in fuego. In the first quarter alone, he was 3 of 3 from beyond the arc. He had 9 points. He ended the game with a total of 14 points. Was 4 of 5 from deep, 5 of 9 overall. He was a negative 20. Like everyone on for the most part, I mean, you take a look at the box score. It's like 37 by Katie, 15 by Bobo, who we'll talk about here momentarily, 11 by Nick Richards, 14 by Royce O'Neal, 10 by Tyus Jones, 11 by Ty Washington. So you had a lot of Suns in double-digit scoring. It was a team-concepted game. But defensively, like Royce O'Neal got pwned in this one, and he got the start instead of Devin Booker. What the hell happened there?
Yeah, no, I think it was a lot of those, switches, the screens, the double screens up top. You kind of see Royce was always kind of lost on those. I mean, the one guy that we always kind of point out on those things is Tyus Jones, where he's struggling to keep in front of anybody. Yeah. That was Royce tonight for sure. I didn't realize it was that bad at negative 20. But the one frustrating thing, too, is that Royce O'Neal coming out and hitting the threes, 3 of them, and then he just has 2 more. That's kind of a struggle, or just the one more. One more made,
but only 2 more attempts.
When he gets hot, just keep feeding the guy, and it's kind of where how it gets lost out there. It's a great start, but I feel like the Suns do that a lot. Maybe other teams do too, where some guy gets hot, they kind of go away from him. Like you got to, especially in the game without Devin Booker and Grayson Allen, you got to pick up on that. Keep hitting him. He hits him from far away. He doesn't even have to jump. He is flat-footed when he shoots it. So keep feeding him. He should have had at least 11 attempts tonight.
Yeah, especially on a game with no Devin Booker, no Bradley Beal, and those extra shot attempts are available. You feel like he'd be somebody who would be absolutely just cooking. And again, he started out cooking. I didn't understand, again, why they went away from him. So
frustrating.
So the interesting thing about Royce O'Neal is what is his future with Phoenix? He's on the first year of a 4-year deal. He's paid 9.3 this year, but it's 10.1 next year, 10.9 the next year, 11.6 the next year. And, to the Suns' credit, I think it's a good idea giving him that contract. He is a three-point shooter. It's like him and Grayson Allen are great contracts for Phoenix if you want to build appropriately, because you can trade them for players and assets. Again, they're also the perfect player to have if you had other players to make up the Bradley Beal contract. And I'm going to beat that thing to fucking death about how if we didn't have Bradley Beal, we had more players to fortify the Book and KD core. We'd be in a lot better shape right now. But I mean, he should be back next year. But defensively, and again, this might be a matchup-based thing, but defensively, there's been some regression, right?
Yeah, there has, and you kind of always took him over Grayson Allen for that aspect of just the defense, right? He was kind of a bigger guy. He can kind of rebound for you, play the power forward at times if you want, but the fact that he's kind of just missing in that area kind of sucks. I feel like this team, including the players, are just kind of stretched thin, right? They're still, like I said, even with what we're talking about, when I was talking about Mason Plumlee, like asking so much for one guy to do something that's out of his like league in a way, right? Kind of past his ceiling. Like maybe Royce is too much of what they're asking him to do or something, because he kind of does look like he just lackadaisical out there defensively, rebounding and stuff like that, where you just kind of notice him from behind the line, right? Before, I felt like last season, end of the season, and even beginning of this season, like you just notice his impact on defense and just how powerful he was in a way for his size, which we kind of needed. Now it just kind of went away. So maybe there's a little bit of a lingering injury there. Who knows? But he has kind of fallen off, where I think if you choose between the two, when we've done this all season long, between Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal, either one getting traded, I don't know. I would stick right now with Grayson Allen, but Royce O'Neal was ahead of the pack earlier this season for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of a neck and neck race, and it all comes down to defense, in all honesty, because that's the challenge for this team overall. It's just defensively, they're not good. I mean, I can't even put any nice soft wordsmithing on top of that.
You hear other pods talk about the Suns, like it's grotesque. Like other fans of the game cannot stand watching the Suns play. Like
they're so dismissive of their defense.
Yeah, tonight was one of those where they really did try. They got down and dirty a little bit more than usual, but on a night-to-night basis, it's just like it's not fun to watch this team because they don't expend themselves like they should. But tonight we kind of got that. We'll see what they look like later on.
This is an interesting question from Peter Papalardo in the chat. And this is one I'd like to explore because it talks about exactly what we're talking about, which is defense. He goes, what would the Suns' record be right now with Frankie V calling the shots? I bet the defense would be better. You want to field that, or shall I to start?
You know what? It is interesting because I bet you we would still have Beal in the starting lineup. We would still have Nurk, I think, because he would have stuck with that. Coach Bud had the balls to kind of make those moves, but it didn't help the Suns in the long run. So maybe if we keep those guys a little bit more happy and keep this starting lineup together and not make those moves and just kind of believe in it, then maybe it pans out. But then also, like, just that question had me thinking, like, do you ever think like the Matt Ishbia thing, it's kind of like a Jerry Jones thing where maybe from up very, very top, Matt Ishbia's calling the shots, being like, hey, let's do this to the coach. Do you think coach really has the maneuver capability like he should? Or do you think it's like an owner thing? Because maybe he didn't have it last year, but this year, Matt Ishbia is like, I'm going to kind of guide this thing. I don't know. I
don't dismiss it. And here's why. Again, you look at Ty Washington and Con Gillespie getting as much run as they did in these past couple games. And I know that there's injuries. And I know that there's depth issues at the guard position. But you did just acquire Vasa Micic, who was available tonight. And I thought we'd actually see him get his Suns debut tonight. But part of that, I feel, is almost organizational, where Ishbia and or Bartelstein, and perhaps even James Jones, if he has the power to do so, had a conversation with Bud and goes, hey, we want to see a little bit more of these guys on tape. They're tearing it up in the G League, man. They're tearing it up. We want to see what they look like out there and see if they're worth potentially elevating next year. And maybe as we are amidst a soft retool, we know that foundationally we have some of our future guards available to us. And right now, given the state of the Suns, now's the time to do it because there's injuries and there's opportunities. So make it happen, Bud. And I think that So I agree. I agree that the potential definitely exists for that.
Yeah.
You talk about the Frankie V situation calling the shots. I couldn't give Peter Papalardo here an exact record for the Suns, but I bet you they would be better. And you just look at this year over last year. This year, the Suns, from a defensive rating standpoint, are 27th in the league. 27th. And last year, we were 13th. Now, if you recall, it was a slow and steady climb for Phoenix to become the 13th overall defensive rated team. The beginning of the season, there was some adjustments going on. There was some learning curves that were occurring. And ultimately, the team was about 19th for the first third of the season. But it's something that I tracked throughout the season. And I went as far as tracking the first year of Frank Vogel's teams in which he was the head coach and how the defensive rating impacts occurred week to week. And there's a graph I have somewhere, and I tweeted it out last year showcasing just that typically he'll start kind of, middle of the pack, and the team gets better as the season progresses. And that's exactly what happened last season. This season, we are the 9th overall offensive team relative to total, or I'm sorry, we're 10th overall in offensive rating. Whereas last year we were 9th. So we still have the same offensive viability that we have, at least, when you stack it against the rest of the league, right? We still have that same offensive viability, but because the defense is so horrendous, that's why we are in this situation that we're in, where we're 2 games under 500 entering the All-Star break, which I don't think anybody believed could occur even after everything that happened last season with this roster.
So John, we are comparing everything to last year now. It sucks because I don't want to go there with coaches, but once we start going back and talking about this might be a better team with Frank Vogel, then we thought James Jones might be the out this offseason, but the more and more we go through this, if things don't turn around, then obviously it's going to have to be Coach Bud. But how much is that up to the owner, up to the GM, or is it up to Devin Booker? Or, you know what I mean? There's just so much that goes into it. With Nurk leaving and having comments about being respected as a human and stuff like that, is that to the coach or is that to the players? I don't know, because he says there's chaos in the locker room. Is that the players or is it the coaches? It might just be the coaches that are. It
might be the organization as a whole.
How is that possible that now we're going down this path? The same that with Sarv, not as bad, but where it's just the respect is not, it's not represented at all. These players don't have any kind of respect when they're playing the game or off the court in the locker room. They don't have it from the GMs or the coaches. It can't be a thing again. We have to have some kind of leak come out about this organization and what's really going on, because when I'm back there, it's good food, hot dogs at halftime, really good access to the team, courtside, stuff like that. So everyone seems fine. But in the locker room,
and Grayson Allen said it the other day. He said that it's not toxic at all.
Yeah.
And
was he the toxic one then? I don't know.
Is Grayson Allen the toxic?
No. Yusuf Nurkic. Yeah.
Again, I don't know the answer to this, and it would be great if somebody like Kevin Durant would come on and have a conversation and be truly candid on what was occurring back there.
Did you send him a link?
Of course, I sent him a link.
Oh, he didn't block you again after talking to him?
No. But it'd be great to really understand the inner workings of how that locker room functions, because last season, when the season was over, came the hit piece, right? The Athletic put out a piece saying that Frank Vogel had lost the locker room and people didn't respect him. And kind of when you hit that point, there's no going back. And now we have midseason where you have a player who's actively, who has passive aggressively stated pretty much the same. And then when he goes to a new team, the first opportunity he has after playing in a subpar game when the team got his ass kicked is man, everyone here hustles and they treat me like a human. It doesn't paint a great picture of the Suns' inner workings, whether it's ownership, whether it's leadership, whether it's coaching, or whether it's fellow players. You don't know where the disconnect is. But again, here we are at the back end of a season questioning these things. And I said this last night, and I'll say it again. I don't think Budenholzer goes this offseason. I truly don't. I don't think that the Matt Ishbia is going to, in his first 4 seasons, right? He's been here for 3.5, but heading into his 4th season, have a 4th different head coach, because you're spending all this money and you're putting it into a roster, and you're just consistently doing 2 things: saying, 1, yeah, we just can't find the right guy. No, they're great. It's the guy. And 2, paying these motherfuckers, because they're still paying Vogel. Budenholzer is on a 5-year, $50 million deal. $10 million a year is what they pay Coach Budenholzer. You're just going to have to pay him too after you're paying Monty, although Monty got a new job, so they don't have to pay him anymore. But I mean, it's not a good look. And so something has, like, again, real conversations have to happen, much akin to how we operate in the real world, right? You know, it's so much different for these NBA players and these NBA coaches who are making all this money and have all these egos because they're amazing athletes and they're the best in the world at what they do. To function as a member of a team, it's like you go to work and everybody you work with is the best at what they do. There's egos there. There's passive-aggressive comments that would occur. There's situations where you're just like, dude, I don't want to work with this guy. He thinks he's fucking better than me. I'm better than him. And who's determining that? People above you, and obviously everyone who's standing outside your window. You work at a bank and you're like, I'm the best fucking banker ever. And there's people outside with signs being like, dude, Matthew, I love you. You're the best banker ever. And the other people are like, fuck that dude, man. See how long it takes him to count back change to people? He's fucking weak, dude. And so you have all these different dynamics occurring. And at the end of the day, and I've mentioned this before, coaching and counseling conversations need to occur. Sit down, real conversations, real talk with each other as human beings on a human level. And vulnerable conversations when you go like, listen, we as an organization, Kevin or Devin or Brad, we failed you by not putting you in a situation to be successful. How can we make that up? And going to Yusuf and having the same thing. We failed you by not making you feel like you're human. What can we do better to mend that? You know, we can't correct the past. We can correct the future. Allow me the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, but on the other hand, too, like I agree with a lot of that. But if you're not really working out in a company that's trying to like make money or get off their feet, you know what I mean? Like they're gonna let you go. They're not even gonna let you know half the time. So I feel like it's okay to have the respect talk and like the disrespect for me as a player, but also like the organizations that I had to do with. That's why I was so for Kevin Durant just being traded, because I thought it was better for the organization. That's what I thought. But you know,
combined with assets coming back.
Yeah, but it's also just, it's a thing where it can't be separated. Like it's something where the players get so upset. Like if they don't hear it from their manager first, or they don't hear it from the coach first that they're being traded, that it's leaked on Twitter, Shams is throwing it out there. That's the disrespect. So there's a lot of disrespect, but everyone has to realize like it's always going to come down to what the team wants, always, right? And then sometimes the players get what they want, and they have been lately within the last 10 years. So we're kind of moving towards that way too. So I don't know. I feel like there's just always, it's kind of like a soap opera now with the NBA, where that's where we're kind of getting our entertainment now. It's not about the play at all. Like Luka played 2 games last 2 nights. I don't care. But the trade, that's what I cared about. That was fucking amazing. But I don't want to watch him play the Jazz 2 games in a row. It's everything else outside of basketball.
Yeah, and again, this is a lot of inner working assumption is occurring because of all the dysfunction that we see on the court. What's unfortunate, at least from the outside looking in, through the eyes and the lens of a fan, is every step of this roster and this team, although designed with good intentions, has worked out in quite possibly the worst scenario outside of massive catastrophic injuries.
Yep.
Everything has backfired in the Suns' face. And again, I appreciate that we have an owner who's willing to take swings. It's just unfortunate because he's not making contact on any of those swings. He's popping out to first. It's at bat after at bat after at bat thus far. And now we're in like a situation where, again, I've said this before, but the only way around it is through it. And we just have to go through it as a fan base, you know, and it's funny because it's almost like the Nets. It's a very similar situation to what the Nets did. New owner comes in, makes some big splash move, acquires some big name talent, doesn't work out, has to, you know, blow up the franchise essentially. And now they're over there in purgatory trying to figure out what their next move is. They're selling Cam Johnson, but nobody wants to buy it because they overpaid Cam Johnson. One of the things that we all talk about as Suns fans is how much we loved Cam Johnson here, but there was also that pending decision of what his contract was going to be. And we knew it was going to be in the same range as Mikal Bridges. And he's not worth Mikal Bridges' $23 to $25 million a year contract. He's more like a $17 million a year guy. And guess what? Cam Johnson gets that $25 million contract. He is shopped aggressively all trade deadline, and he's still playing in Brooklyn because nobody wants to do that in the new modern CBA where everybody's scared of taking on contracts where price value paid isn't guaranteed. And Cam Johnson's not going to guarantee you that. And so we're just in this horrible place, and that's nice.
Yeah, Cam Johnson, that would take you though. I would give you that money, 25 million a night.
Did you do subreddit stakeout?
I did. Yeah. Let's do it.
The Suns Jam Session Subreddit Stakeout.
All right, so Matthew was in Houston in
they love
H-Town tonight.
I was there with my backwards hat, and I got to tell you, John, they were actually fine. They're okay because they want Kevin Durant, they want Devin Booker, so they're okay with Suns fans hanging out and knowing who I am. My favorite comment. This is always
Were
great.
they interviewing you?
No, they were not actually.
Oh.
They were just looking at me, up and down, smelling me a little bit.
A lot of.
Yeah, this is a good comment because it's always the funniest because it reminds me back in the day when Steve Nash and those Suns were having such a hard time all the time getting a fucking rebound. Says, get a fucking rebound. That was my favorite.
Story of our franchise.
Ty still with that granny hairdo. Yes, Ty Washington with that granny hairdo.
Was it Ty or was it Tyus Jones?
Ty.
He's got a granny hairdo.
Yeah, you ever notice his hairdo looks like a granny? I feel like it does. Book and KD going to fight each other for the right to be traded here. I don't know. Probably got to trade for Durant, and we might actually make a run. We don't need Cam or Reed anymore. I don't know who those people are.
Reed Shepard and Cam Whitmore.
My bad.
Yeah, it is your
Hold
bad.
on. Every time Brooks tries to create his own shot, he needs to be taken out until he learns that that's not why he's here. And then he hit 4 threes tonight. So
he hit the 2 daggers at the end.
I know. He's probably one of those.
Brooks.
He's probably one of those. No. Yes, players like the worst.
100%.
This is the last comment. There wasn't a whole lot, and I don't know why. It's cool to have a bunch of guys that can play defense, but goddamn, can we get some shooters? And that's been their motto all year long.
They're looking for shooters, but they got hustlers and they got defense. They're kind of like Orlando. They're like the Western Conference Orlando.
Exactly.
And that is a Subreddit Stakeout brought to you by D's Nuts.
The Suns Jam Session Subreddit Stakeout.
All right, let's do it.
Jam Star of the Game.
All right, Jamsters, a reminder, subscribe, rate, review. Thank you for hanging out with us. Let us know in the chat who your Jam Star of the Game is in this, the final game before the All-Star break. Matthew, I'll go first, as you went first last night. This is another one for Kevin Durant, in my opinion. Like I said before, 37 points from KD. 42 minutes played. Just irresponsible of the Suns to continue to have to put this much tax on Kevin Durant. But he gets my Jam Star. Who do you give it to, Matthew?
I give it to KD.
All right.
It'd be nice to get 40, but really good game from him tonight.
Only one time this year he's gotten 40.
Yeah.
Only one time.
He's always a 30-point guy. That's
Yep.
where he's usually comfortable at.
Just
so.
steady as can be.
Yes.
Saul says KD for Jam Star with Bold, the honorable mention. Mr. Bean, mate. Not sure if I know what that means. And that's it. The Jamsters are tired of this shit too.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Up next for the Phoenix Suns. All right. So we have some time off, Jamsters. The Suns don't play again till next Thursday when they take on Wemby and the Spurs. It's a 3-game after the All-Star break road trip. We start in San Antonio. We go up to Chicago, and then we play Toronto.
Okay.
So if you want to talk about the toughest remaining schedule in the NBA, this is like the last easy stretch for Phoenix because then it gets really fucking murdersome. So I'll ask you this. Any plans during the time off?
No, I'll probably write a few articles here or there, and then that's about it. Yeah, what are you doing?
Well, we got President's Day on Monday, so I'll be off that day. So I'll just kind of be relaxing. Don't think I'll like All-Star Saturday night. Probably won't watch All-Star game. I might dabble in because KD's going to be there, and I you do like to see Phoenix Suns representation, and obviously we have an all-time great there. So it's like might as well watch and see what kind of tomfoolery that the NBA's cooked up for us this year. But I think it's just kind of taking a break. And for those of you who are audio-only listeners, I do recommend, continue to keep those notifications on. We have a couple podcasts that are coming out I was on with Rooster today on AM 1060 Radio, the Sports Zone, so I'll be releasing that in the next couple days. Our conversation primarily around Bowl, because Rooster has always been a big Bowl guy, and he always asks me if we should play him more, and I always tell him no. So I literally just tell him this episode, I go, I don't know why the fuck you call me your son's insider, because I get everything wrong. And then we have a jam session flashback episode where, as I mentioned before, I've taken all the audio from our old, when we acquired Beal podcasts, and I fed them into an AI program that actually pops out a podcast about us hosting a podcast talking about Bradley Beal acquisition. And it's just kind of interesting to hear this technology talk about us talking about it and the observations that we had. So it's a way of going back and looking back at big moments. And I'm going to do the same thing for like the KD trade, big moments in Suns history, losing game 7 or game 6 of the finals, and just, having this thing give it to you in a different perspective. So just a couple fun things we're working on here at the Suns Jam Session podcast. So, everybody out there, enjoy the time off. I think we could all use a break from the Suns. Go outside, walk around, walk your dog, get to know your family again. And Matthew, what else could they do?
All right. Yeah. Just go home and love your family.
Hey, you're listening to the Suns Jam Session podcast, shooting the shit about the Suns since 2019.